All right, let's start today by setting a scene. I want you to picture this. It's freezing cold.
Yeah, biting cold.
We're talking December 30th, 2002, Camden, North London. It's that kind of morning where the sky just feels low and gray.
And the city is just barely waking up. But our focus isn't on the commuters or the shops. We're looking at something much more hidden.
We're looking at the back of a residential block on College Place. It's gritty, urban, specifically the communal waste bins.
And the person who starts this whole thing, this huge investigation, is a homeless man.
He's not looking for trouble. He's just looking for food. The sources say he's digging through the bins around 9:30 in the morning.
Which is a really crucial detail for the timeline later. But for now, it's just desperation. He's pushing aside trash, digging down to the bottom.
And his hand hits something heavy.
A black trash bag.
He pulls it open. He's probably hoping for, I don't know, clothes, leftover food, anything.
And instead, he's staring at human legs.
That's the moment. That's when this ordinary Monday morning just shatters.
He screams. Police descend on the scene. Sirens, tape, the whole procedural circus. But as they're taping off the area, the scope of this just explodes.
Because it's not just the one bag. They start searching the other 3 bins right there in the row.
And after about an hour of digging through freezing garbage, they find a second bag.
This is where the police realize this is not a standard homicide investigation.
No. The second bag. It contains an upper torso and 2 more legs.
So immediately, the math is just horrifying.
2 bags.
Oh.
4 legs. They're dealing with 2 separate victims.
And the condition of the remains. It tells a story. It's a story about trying to erase someone.
Completely. There are no heads. There are no hands. The killer has taken very deliberate steps to strip these women of their identity. He wanted them to be nothing more than just biological material.
An attempt to create nameless ghosts, as one of the reports put it. But even without faces or fingerprints, the pathology report, it started building a profile of the killer almost right away.
Exactly. This is where the science starts to outsmart the killer's plan. So the coroner confirms, yes, both victims were women. But the most chilling detail from that initial autopsy was the time of death.
They weren't killed at the same time.
No, and not just by a few hours. There was a significant gap. One victim had been dead for about 48 hours longer than the other.
Which implies something just terrifying.
It's a domestic horror story.
Yeah.
It means the killer murdered the first woman, kept her body, or parts of her body, in his home for 2 full days.
And during that time, he went out, found a second victim, killed her, and brought her back.
It speaks to a level of comfort with the dead, that is. It's almost unheard of. He wasn't in a panic to get rid of the first body. He was patient. He was actively hunting while living in what was essentially a slaughterhouse.
And we know he didn't go far to dump them. You mentioned the timeline earlier. The bins were emptied daily at 9:00 a.m. The man finds the bodies at 9:30.
That 30-minute window is the first huge break in the case. The killer didn't drive these bags to some remote forest in the middle of the night.
No, he walked them out to his own communal bins in broad daylight, minutes before they were found.
That level of confidence, it's just staggering.
So let's talk about identifying the victims, because this is a perfect example of how bureaucracy can sometimes catch what biology can't. They identified the first victim, Bridget, pretty quickly with DNA, right?
Right. Bridget was 34, a sex worker with a history of minor drug offenses, so her DNA was already in the national database. They got a match almost instantly.
But the second victim, Elizabeth, she was a ghost. She wasn't in the system. No fingerprints, even if they'd had her hands. No DNA on file.
She was completely unidentifiable. Until the medical examiner took a closer look at the torso, they found silicone breast implants.
And this is that ghost in the machine moment, isn't it?
It is. Medical devices like that are strictly regulated. These implants had serial numbers etched onto them. Suddenly, the police didn't need a face. They just needed a manufacturer's log.
So they traced the serial numbers.
All the way to a cosmetic surgery clinic in Germany. And that clinic had the patient records. They had her name.
Elizabeth, age 29, also a sex worker.
And both of these women had been missing for weeks. But because they lived on the margins of society, their disappearances just trashed. They didn't trigger a massive manhunt. Not until now.
Okay, so we have the victims. We have the timeline, late December 2002. Now we need the killer. And that disposal method, dumping the bags by hand, that really narrowed it down.
It's just basic physics. Human remains are incredibly heavy. If you're carrying 2 large bags full of what he was carrying, you are not walking a mile. You're walking a few hundred yards max.
And they had eyes on the scene, didn't they? The CCTV.
Grainy, low frame rate footage from 2002 is awful quality, but it was enough. They spot a figure, a man in a cap, his face is obscured, walking calmly towards the bins.
And he's carrying 2 heavy black bags.
By hand. No car.
That's the confirmation.
That was it. That confirmed he was a local. He lived in the immediate vicinity. So the police could apply this massive filter. They weren't looking for anyone in London anymore. They were looking for a man living within a stone's throw of College Place.
And likely living alone with some kind of history of instability.
And when they ran that filter, one name just floated right to the top. Anthony Hardy.
And this is where the story shifts. Because up to this point, it sounds like a standard, if, gruesome whodunit. But when that name came up, the police realized this never should have been a whodunit at all.
This is the part of the research that just makes you want to throw the file across the room.
Because this wasn't the first time police had been to Anthony Hardy's flat.
Not even close. To really get the magnitude of this tragedy, you have to rewind the clock 11 months, January 2002. Same building, same man.
Hardy was known as the neighbor from hell, wasn't he?
And then some. A neighbor reported him for pouring acid on her front door. He was vandalizing mailboxes, screaming through the walls. The police went to his flat to investigate, basically, vandalism and a hate crime.
And when they walked in, the atmosphere was just off.
He was disturbingly calm. Hardy was just sitting at his kitchen table. And right in the middle of the table, he'd placed a single key.
He didn't even wait for them to find it.
No. When the officers asked about it, he just pointed and said, "That is for the locked room."
I mean, that's a horror movie trope playing out in a London council flat. The police take the key, they open the door.
And on the bed, they find the body of a woman, Sally White. She had visible head wounds. She was dead.
Okay, so just let's break this down. You have a violent, unstable man pouring acid on doors. He has a locked room. Inside that room is a dead woman with a head injury. He's arrested for murder. End of story.
It should have been. It absolutely should have been. Hardy even gave this bizarre statement claiming Sally White died of natural causes, but then she woke up as a zombie to attack him and he had to hit her in self-defense.
He's talking about zombies. There is a body. Why wasn't he locked up for life right then and there?
This is the systemic blindness we were talking about. The whole case came down to one person, the pathologist. They examined Sally White's body, and despite the obvious head wound, they found evidence of coronary heart disease.
And they decided the heart disease was the main factor.
They ruled her death as natural causes. They decided the head wound was either post-mortem or just not severe enough to have been fatal. They essentially bought his story that she just dropped dead.
That seems like such a massive leap of faith for a medical examiner to make, especially when the suspect is talking about zombies.
It was a catastrophic pathology error. And because of that ruling, natural causes, the Crown Prosecution Service couldn't charge him with murder. They couldn't prove he killed her. So they charged him with the vandalism. And because of his erratic behavior, they sectioned him under the Mental Health Act.
So he goes to a psych facility, not prison.
For 10 months. He's in the system. But then we hit the second systemic failure. In November 2002, just 1 month before Bridget and Elizabeth were found in those bins, the doctors decided Hardy was stable. They had his bipolar disorder managed. They deemed him a low risk.
And they released him.
They released him. And not just to some halfway house. They released him back to his independent counsel flat. The exact same flat where he'd been found with the dead body.
That's just, it's unbelievable. He goes right back to the lair.
And you have to think about the psychological effect that had on Hardy. We talk about the God complex and serial killers. For him, he had killed a woman. The authorities examined the body, and they basically said, no crime here.
It must have felt like permission.
It was validation. He must have felt he was smarter than the police, smarter than the doctors, untouchable. So when he got back to that flat in November, he wasn't rehabilitated. He was escalating. He got away with it once. He knew he could do it again.
Which brings us back to January 2003. The police have linked Hardy to the bin bags. They know who he is. They raid the flat.
And the scene inside is just, it's jarring. The police break down the door. They're expecting chaos, a mess. Instead, the flat is aggressively clean, spotless.
But the walls? The walls tell a different story.
The walls are covered in symbols, occult drawings, these strange, incoherent scribbles. It's like a visual representation of his fractured mind. And just like 11 months before, there is a locked room.
History just repeating itself.
There's a damp towel stuffed under the door to block the smell. The police force it open, and inside, they find the rest of the victims. They find a torso. And they find a bag containing 4 severed hands.
He kept the hands.
He did. And nearby, laid out almost like surgical tools, were a hacksaw and knives. The scene suggested he was interrupted. He was probably in the middle of getting rid of this final evidence when he realized the net was closing in.
You said the flat was spotless, but forensics had ways of seeing things even back then.
Luminol.
Yeah.
It's a chemical that reacts with the iron in hemoglobin, so even if you bleach a crime scene, the iron stays. When the forensics team sprayed the flat and cut the lights, the place just lit up blue.
Everywhere.
The bathroom, the kitchen, the hallway was washed in blood. He had turned that flat into an abattoir.
But Hardy himself,
Yeah.
he was gone.
He was on the run.
Yeah.
But, ironically, his own biology was his undoing. In his haste to get out of there, he left something critical on the kitchen counter. A vial of insulin.
He was diabetic.
Insulin dependent. And that starts a countdown clock. You can hide from the police, you can change how you look, but you can't survive without insulin. And in the UK, you can't just buy that at a pharmacy. You need a prescription.
So the police knew he had to surface at a medical facility.
They flooded the system. Every single hospital in London got his photo. Every triage nurse was told, if a man matching this description comes in asking for insulin, stall him and call us.
It's such a strange end to a manhunt. The man who thought he was a genius is brought down because he needs his meds.
It took 2 days. Hardy walked into University College Hospital, went up to the counter, asked for his prescription, and was arrested on the spot.
Did he put up a fight?
No. He was calm. He denied everything at first, tried to blame some stranger who had access to his flat. That same old dissociation.
But once they had him and they processed the evidence from the flat, the motive became so much darker, they found a camera, didn't they?
An old film camera. And when they developed the role, it confirmed this was never just about killing. Hardy had posed the bodies of Bridget and Elizabeth.
Posed them.
He had. Dressed them up. In some of the photos, the victims are wearing the same baseball cap that Hardy wore in the CCTV footage.
Yeah.
He was treating them like dolls.
It points directly to necrophilia.
It does. It suggests his primary drive was total possession. Total control. He had a history of obsession with pornography, but this was the ultimate escalation. He wanted partners who couldn't leave, couldn't speak, couldn't reject him.
And when you look at his history, the violence didn't just start with Sally White, did it? This wasn't a sudden break from reality.
Not at all. Years before this, he lived in Australia. He had a wife, children, but he tried to drown his wife. He was deported back to the UK. The violence was always there, simmering. The bipolar diagnosis, it explains the erratic behavior, the shouting, the writing on the walls. But we have to be so careful not to let that be the excuse.
Right.
Bipolar disorder doesn't make you buy a hacksaw. It doesn't make you pose dead bodies for photographs. That was a separate predatory evil inside him.
Hardy eventually pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to a whole life order, which means he would never be released. He died in prison in 2020.
But the arrest isn't really the end of the story, is it? It's the what if that just hangs over this whole case.
The what if is the part that keeps you up at night.
When police analyzed his flat, his notes, the setup of his kill room, it was clear he wasn't finished. He was just getting started. If that homeless man hadn't looked in that specific bin, if the garbage truck had come 10 minutes earlier, Hardy could have gone on for months.
He had the method, he had the location, and he had a system that had already proven it would look the other way.
That is the absolute tragedy at the heart of this. Sally White was the warning shot. It was a massive red flare that everyone just ignored. A medical error, a lack of institutional curiosity, a bureaucratic need to just close a file. That when natural causes ruling cost Bridget and Elizabeth their lives.
It really forces you to look at the safety nets we think are in place. We assume that if someone is truly dangerous, the system will stop them.
But here, the system held the door wide open for him. It just shows how thin that line is between safety and danger. Sometimes the only thing standing between a predator and his next victim isn't the police or the courts. It's just a homeless man looking for breakfast in a frozen bin.
That is a heavy thought to leave you with, but a necessary one. The system is only as good as the people checking the boxes.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and pay attention to what gets thrown away.
Until next time.